Welcome to another edition of Conversations with CASA, a news and information program focusing on issues in the child welfare community. My name is Vicki Spriggs and I'm the CEO of Texas CASA, and we're filming here at the Texas CASA office. I'm also your host. Our guest today is Crystal Leff-Pinon, and Crystal is the managing attorney for the Family Helpline. The Helpline is a project of the Texas Legal Services Center, funded by the Children's Commission, Children's Justice Act, and the Texas Access to Justice Foundation. That's a mouthful. Welcome, Crystal.
Hi, thanks for having me.
No, absolutely. Can you tell us about the Helpline?
Sure. So we are a free legal service for anybody throughout the state of Texas. We mostly talk to parents, but we can also talk to relatives or really anybody who has a question about a CPS child welfare issue. Our phone line, when it rings and someone answers, it's staffed only by attorneys. So if you call our number, the first person you're going to get is a lawyer. We don't have this complicated intake system. And basically, if you have a question about a child welfare issue that somehow relates to Texas, that's the other requirement, then you can talk with us. And the idea came from the fact that there's so much need in Texas for information. There's a lot of focus on the court piece of CPS and foster care, and that is definitely a needed place to focus attention. But there are literally hundreds of thousands of families that are affected by CPS in the investigations and family-based stages that have zero right to an attorney. And so because of that, that sort of was the seed that bore this project. Because the idea was there's so many people that just can't access anything really. A lot of these families are living in poverty, but even the ones that do have the money to hire an attorney, good luck finding somebody that's experienced in this field.
Right, and if you can find them, can you afford them? You might be able to afford an attorney, but for somebody who has that level of practice that can help maneuver this system is, yeah.
Right, right.
How long has the Helpline been in existence?
So we took our very first phone call on January 31st of 2017. So we're not quite 2 years old.
Okay.
And in that nearly 2 years of operation, we've talked to over 3,000 different people in the state.
How many attorneys do you have?
Well, we've grown. When we first started in January 31st, I was the lone staff attorney on the project. Now we have myself as the managing attorney, 2 full-time staff attorneys, and 3 part-time staff attorneys.
Super. Wow. 3,000 calls and what, 4.5 individuals basically?
Right, because we're not always there at the same time.
Right.
Every now and then we do have the luxury when all of us are there, which is lovely. But the part-timers, they come in and out and they have different schedules. So right, it's not technically 6 people there all the time.
Wow. I can say that 10 times and I would still want to say wow for the 11th time. So I'm a person in need, I'm a parent or a relative who's trying to find out what's going on. Somebody just came and took my kid, or they're talking about taking my child. I call up, there are 6 attorneys, there's probably 120 other people trying to make that same call. Do I get a busy signal?
No. It's strange that it's sort of this simple model, but it also feels so innovative and pioneering. The phone will ring, and if one of us is available, we just pick it up. If we're not available, then it will go to voicemail, and we do take messages, and messages are always returned within 1 business day.
Super.
Right. So it works out really well, actually. There are going to be a few people that don't necessarily want to leave messages, and so sometimes they'll just keep calling. But if you leave a message, a person will always hear from one of us within 1 business day.
Super. Are there questions that you hear a lot?
We do have a few more standard ones, but what I have learned coming into this, more than actually I saw as a prosecutor representing the state, which I did before this, families have such complicated issues, especially when they're not involved with a CPS court case, that the issues are incredibly varied and incredibly complicated. that being said, we do see a lot of issues involving substance abuse, domestic violence, a lot of families that need assistance with modifications of current custody orders or help figuring out how to obtain a custody order, because many times these situations involve a piece of child welfare and child protection, but there's also a family law element to this, that to really help that family, they've got to figure out how to navigate that system to get some orders to protect the children.
So do somebody calls, they have a question, you work through the issues with them. Does that person ever sit down with one of you all, or you all are strictly telephone consultation and then you direct them to where they need to go? Or
Right, we're only on the phone because we man the whole state. We are the only statewide free legal service geared towards CPS that we have in Texas. And we've got 254 counties. We are the largest state with the highest number of counties in the United States. So as much as we would love to go out to some of these counties and see someone face to face, we have to do it on the phone for logistics. The other important piece of doing it on the phone, though, and this is where we are a little bit different than a traditional legal model, is we don't create an attorney-client relationship with our callers. We don't give legal advice. So what that means is we don't tell people what we think they should do. We don't give them our opinion. It's almost as if you're calling and getting a free class on the law. But because of that, we need callers to be anonymous. So we take very limited information that's personally identifying from callers. And so seeing people in person also would create that issue with no longer being anonymous.
Yeah, super. Yeah, I couldn't imagine you sat down with a person with as few of you as there are, and as great the need, you'd have one case for a whole year. I mean, that would be it. 6 people, in the course of a year, which wouldn't work. You'd never get to 3,000.
Right.
Just for the record, and I'm sure we're going to show it later on, but will you just tell us what your phone number is so CASA volunteers will know?
It is 844-888-6565.
Perfect, thank you. Now, a CASA volunteer working with a family might come up against something they need clarification on. Could they also call the hotline and get help?
Absolutely, absolutely. We're open to the public. We see ourselves as a community service. About 70-ish% of our callers are parents, but we certainly have talked to other people in the community. I've spoken with a NICU nurse or a school counselor. There are people that they don't really need a lawyer to represent them, but they need some information. And that could be very beneficial to CASA volunteers who, although we wouldn't be providing representation, we could be providing an education, which can be helpful. Understanding the law a little bit better, what is required in certain parts of the family code. Those are all things that we do every single day.
Super. You're a great resource. Tell us the number one more time.
Sure. It's 844-888-6565.
Super. Crystal, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for what you do, because you and your staff are nose to the grindstone for every call that you take, and that it takes a lot because you hear a lot. So thank you for your heart and the heart that you bring to this as well. And thank you for all that experience that you're getting out there to people who need help.
Well, thank you.
Absolutely. And thank you for joining us for another edition of Conversations with CASA. We'll see you next time.